Welcome back to the pancake world, everyone. I'm about a week into my vacation back home to see my family, and I just could not stay away from all my favorite anti-flat earthers. But rather than a new video this week, what I've done, I've combined two of my older videos with a lower view count from my very first excursion out to actually observe the curvature of the Earth. Originally, this was two videos, but I've combined it into one. I've also cleaned up the audio a little bit because I've learned a few things since then. I've also removed the terrible background music that I originally had because I was self-conscious about myself talking into a microphone without music behind me. So I hope you enjoy watching the boats go over the harbor in Busan. Today I'm going to take you on my first adventure attempting to take pictures of boats going over the horizon. I've been in Korea for about 2 months now, not too far from the coastline, so this is my first attempt with a telephoto lens to actually see what ships look like as they're getting closer and moving farther away over the ocean. So right now I live here in Daegu. It is about an hour-and-a-half drive down to Busan, and Busan is one of the busiest ports in the world. It's amazing how many ships are down there. But when you take into account for the fact that South Korea literally has no land mass for importing anything, you can understand why. And you can also see that Busan is right across the sea from Japan, which is one of the prime reasons why I wanted to go down there, because someday I'm hoping if the weather's clear enough that I might actually be able to get some shots of the mountains in Japan in that area. So if we zoom in here, I'll take you to the spot that I shot from today. You can see all of these ports down here, and like I said, this is an extremely busy port. Where I was at was right here. Not sure the name of it, but it's a beach type area. There is a tourist attraction down here with a lighthouse and an observatory. You can take like a shuttle car out there to it. That was my original intent, but there's really not too much good observing out there. And then you can see these islands out here that'll come into play in a little bit. And another goal I'd had for the day was to shoot the sunset, because over here's some higher peaks, and the sun was supposed to set directly behind these peaks. But for today's purposes, that did not pan out because the weather did not play along. So if we go into the port where I was at, and you can already see all of these ships, most of these are moored out here waiting to get into port. Where I actually observed from, right there. We'll zoom in and go to the beach. This isn't a sandy beach, it's a very rocky beach, and it's fairly steep, not too bad. This is about a 10-15 foot drop of steps, and then down here is the water line. Now I mentioned those islands out a little ways, and I want to show you something. Right in here, there is a lighthouse, or a buoy light. I'm not sure exactly what you would call it. So you can see that. I could see that from the shoreline. And I've got a couple pictures I'll show you right here. All right, so if we take a measurement of the distance between these 2 points, I apologize for using miles. This lighthouse is just over 7 miles away. And now, as you can see from the curve calculator, that fits about right to what we should be seeing. And when you compare the curve calculator and this shot here, everything fits in. It's about what's right. This lighthouse is about at my sight line, or about at the horizon line. And for anyone who hasn't actually used the curve calculator before, this is an online application you can use at multiple different sites. You put in how high you are and how far away the object you're looking at is. And this will tell you what your horizon line is, how far you can see out. Now, obviously, this is different for land masses and mountains, but on the ocean, this is how far the actual ocean's edge is away that you can physically see. And it also shows you what is hidden from the object you're pointed at. And with this lighthouse, you can see it's telling me nothing is hidden because it is inside my horizon. So anything out past that, in theory, should get cut off a little bit by the curvature of the Earth. Here's a video I shot of a ship coming into harbor. I wish I would caught it earlier, but the lens that I've got is only a 300mm lens, so it's not as crazy as the P900 or the P1000. But you can see this ship coming into harbor. So let's watch this video again, but I want you to pay close attention to the top of this tower and to the horizon line. And you can see this is a very crisp horizon line thanks to the angle of the sun. The sun is pretty much directly behind this boat at a high altitude. So you can get that really nice glint to see where the water is and where it ends. And you can also see the haze in the background because it's just a very hazy day from smog. So pay attention to that red line. That red line is the starting point of that upper mass. You can see that upper mass keeps going up and up and up because the object is getting closer to us, and that is what you'd expect with an object getting closer to you. But it's not until about right now that you see the bottom of the ship starting to go down. Before that, it stayed in place. Let's go back and take a look at that. You can see right here, we don't have any downward motion of this as if it's an object coming closer to you, like a ball coming at you. Until about here. And now you can start to see that gap. The gap between the hull line and the horizon line. And that gap just keeps getting larger and larger, but not much. Not compared to this. Look at the gap between here. And if you don't believe me that there isn't that much of a difference, as we get down to here, you can see that horizon line. That is the original starting point of the lower part of the hull. That is the difference. That is how much hull has grown due to proximity because the ship got closer to us. That is how much the upper hull, the upper mast has grown due to proximity because the ship getting closer to us. That growth is not equal, and it should be. If you had a ball coming towards you and you drew a line through the center of that ball and you drew lines on the tops of the ball, as it came towards you in a linear motion, both of those gaps would expand equally because the entire object gets closer to you all at the same time. But from back here, for a certain part of time, it's not that this isn't getting closer to you, it's that you can't see it because it's blocked. Blocked by the curvature of the earth. And that's how it ends. This would be the same as if a basketball coming towards you, again with a line drawn through the center of that basketball, and the upper portion of that basketball got bigger when compared to the bottom portion of that basketball. But that is not how perspective works. As an object gets closer to you, the entire object gets closer to you. Back at the observation point, I saw another ship. And this was an interesting ship because it was parallel to my position, so I could see it broadsided. And that ship was about right here. Not very far out. And I want to give you a measurement to it. So let's measure this ship. Distance is 3.74 miles. Doesn't seem like that far. Now when we put that into the curve calculator, let's see what it shows what you should be seeing. There's nothing hidden, which is kind of what I was seeing because my original observation height was 38 feet. But that's not the end of this story. I just want to show you quick how I found that particular ship once I had identified it in the ocean. So if we use this really neat little website, Marine Traffic, shows virtually every ship that's in the ocean. So here is the harbor that I was at, or the bay I was at. So we're going to turn on just cargo vessels. Now you can see this is current time. This is today, right now. Now the ship that I was looking at isn't there right now. It has actually moved. It is down here. And I'll show you how I figured out which one it was. The Herma P. So that is the cargo ship that I was looking at. And you can click here and it'll show you the past track of that vessel. Now you can see it came into port on the 20th, steamed in this way. Here we've got that little set of islands where that lighthouse is. There's a waypoint there. And you see all of this movement in here. This is while that ship was just docked at harbor. And the anchor point, it was at one end of the ship, and it was just swaying back and forth, back and forth. So it entered this point on the 20th at 14:53 UTC, and it left pretty much 2 days later. So that ship sat there docked for 2 days. So if you look up in the top right corner, you can see the actual location of the ship while it would have been parallel to the shoreline that I was looking at. This is the data that I used to input the exact location of that ship into Google Earth, so I knew how far away from me it was. I told you that this ship caught my attention. And what caught my attention was that I could actually see the propeller at the back of the ship. This ship is riding extremely high in the water because it has no cargo on top of it, and the propeller is actually partially exposed to the air. When I first noticed that, I wondered if I got closer to the waterline, would my perspective change? So I picked up my camera and I moved about halfway down the beach, and then I took this shot from about a 20-foot elevation above the water. And then I moved down to the waterline and literally put my tripod in the water and took this shot. At a distance, it might not appear to be much, but when you zoom in, the results are pretty obvious. Now, I want to show you the math of precisely what I'm looking at. I could not find a picture of this exact ship's propeller, but from my research, they're about 29 feet tall, and here you can see the general look of those propellers. And if you look at the 4 and 5 meter mark, that's about how much, if not a little bit less, would be sticking out of the water. So that is what we were looking at, 2 to 3 feet at most. At 38 feet elevation, there's no horizon hiding anything. We can see the entire propeller, as you can clearly see in the image. When I move down to 20 feet elevation, it's the same. There's nothing being hidden. But now also you can see it's a more direct side-on view of the propeller. And when I move down to the 4 feet mark, and honestly, that's being generous, my camera was probably more closer to 3 feet, we have at least 1 to 1.5 feet of our observing target obscured by the curvature of the Earth. And you can clearly see that because the propeller is virtually gone. The propeller is virtually gone. And if you think this is a trick of waves, or it was rough seas, or something else, here's another series I took later on in the day. And it's even more stark what you're looking at. All of the information for my location and equipment is posted below. I've even created a public folder on Google Drive for all of the original images for anybody to look at and verify yourself. If you can find a better reason, a more logical reason, backed up by evidence, as to why that propeller disappeared when I got to 4 feet, I invite any and all discussions and debates. But for me, I think I see the curve. Thank you for joining me again for this video, everyone. Like and subscribe if you're new to this channel and you enjoy the content. Hopefully this weekend, as long as the weather holds out, I plan on doing a live stream of a space station transit in front of the moon. This will occur at about 5:30 Sunday morning, Mountain Time. It'll be cold, it'll be early, but as long as the weather holds out, I'll be there, and I invite you to join me. So until next week, stay flat.